Good evening, welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. The exit poll numbers are in. The broad trends are very clear. The two big Hindi heartland states, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, seem to be giving a slight edge to the BJP. The Congress managing to hold on to Chhattisgarh. I think 9 out of 10 polls that I've seen say that the Congress will come back in Chhattisgarh. But the big uptick for the Congress happens to be in Telangana, where it is hoping to dislodge the BRS. But mind you, these are just exit polls. These are not the actual results. The actual results will come on Sunday. So what can possibly go wrong between now and Sunday? It's the exit pollsters' worst nightmare, and we'll have 4 of them here in our studios for this special broadcast. And that is what we will be discussing with this expert panel of psephologists and election experts. Because, mind you, predicting election results in India is a mug's game, not least because of the complexities from state to state, region to region, but most importantly, the conversion of vote share to seat share is a game that is fraught with risk. So, what are the X factors between the exit poll numbers and the actual results? We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, the big picture of what these 5 states mean, setting up the stage from 2023 onwards to 2024.
Welcome to the News 18 mega poll of polls, ladies and gentlemen. It's the semi-final before the finals. The first set of numbers are the Jan Ki Baat numbers that we are putting out here. What are the numbers saying? The numbers are very clearly saying that it's going to be neck and neck with the Congress with its nose just ahead.
2 polls are calling it so close, then you have to give the advantage really to the incumbent.
And in the words of Shivraj Singh Chauhan, what he told us, that मैंने सब कांग्रेस के promises को पंचर कर दिया.
The last few days or weeks of elections are always very critical. They make or break your mind, and that's where the BJP stepped in.
One thing we can fairly say is in Rajasthan, the BJP will come back to power after 5 years. And in Chhattisgarh, at least 2 out of 3 polls seem to be giving the indication that the Congress and Bhupesh Baghel will retain.
Basically, not having a face in Chhattisgarh, there was definitely an anti-incumbency, but it was not a wave of anti-incumbency which could translate into a change of government.
And I think Pradeep may have a point there. You know, people want to see a face. Chehra kaun hai?
ये 22 सीट का मार्जिन क्या है? What is the basis? This is like hedging my bet. चलो यहाँ भी आए तो भी मैं जीत गया, वहाँ भी आए तो मैं जीत गया.
And look at this number. The Congress is very strong in only 5 and it is weak in 53 seats, which is it's never won 53 seats.
So 2-2 out of these 4 key states. Is this possible on result day live?
Hello, Moto.
All right, so who has the edge basis these 2023 exit poll results? Who has the edge for 2024? Let's first talk about the biggest state. The first state that we're going to focus on is Madhya Pradesh. 230 seats, the Hindi heartland. What are the exit pollsters saying? Now, as far as I can see, apart from 2 or 3 pollsters, the top 2 or 3 here, Axis, Matriz and Polstrat, and of course today's Chanakya, all of whom seem to be giving a slight edge. In fact, 3. Axis My India, Matriz and Chanakya. These are the 3 that are giving a slight edge to the BJP. Axis, of course, 140 to 162. Today's Chanakya, 151. But the others, from Polstrat to Jan Ki Baat to all the other pollsters, seemed ETG, CNX, all of them giving the edge to the Congress party. So what does that mean? Now, if you were to aggregate all of it, the poll of polls number is 127, I think, to the BJP and slightly less than 100 for the Congress party. So, if these trends hold, if a good number of polls are giving an edge, not just a slight edge, but a decisive edge to the BJP, then what worked? Because 6 months ago, remember, this may not have been the situation. Number 1, the Ladli Behna Yojana. The Chief Minister himself came out yesterday and said, Ladliyon ne aur Behnon ne hame bachaya hai aur hame dobara vote kiye hain. So that is a big factor. We will analyze that, keeping in mind the excess women voter turnout. Number 2, There were 7 MPs, 3 ministers in the central government who were parachuted to fight. We will see how they have fared. That is the second big factor. The third factor, of course, Prime Minister Modi, he held close to 40 rallies, I believe, in Madhya Pradesh. It was a whirlwind campaign, particularly in the last phase in Madhya Pradesh, that could have worked in favor of the BJP. The other critical factor, and this is what did not go for the BJP in the last time around, Gwalior Chambal, where the Congress swept 26 out of 31, and the Malwa, the Neemaj, Ratlam, Jhabua, that belt, which was the agrarian belt, the tribal belt, where the Congress swept last time, those 2 regions, if they swing towards the BJP, then the BJP might have a slight edge. The most important factor, if, as some of these polls suggest, the BJP comes back in the kind of numbers it is suggesting, 140 plus, then there is no way an incumbent chief minister can be removed. No matter how fatigued the people may be of him or how much anti-incumbency may be there against him, he is a sitting chief minister. If a sitting chief minister comes back with the kind of majority that some of these polls are suggesting, there is no way you can change a sitting chief minister. So what are the X factors in Madhya Pradesh? Remember, it's a big state, it's a close fight. Even in the last election, I still remember we were all here in the CNN News 18 studios. It went on till 11:30 p.m. Can you imagine a big state, just 2 players, bipolar contest going till 11:30 p.m. just to decide who is going to rule Madhya Pradesh. So I have 3 X factors which I think are going to be critical, and the pollsters will explain in just a moment when we go to them how they're reading these 3 X factors. The first X factor is the big M, the Mahila factor, and we've mentioned this yesterday as well in our broadcast. There were 18.3 lakh extra women voters this time around, 2.72 as opposed to 2.41. That's almost 2% of the entire electorate. Now, the question is, have they gone for Ladli Behna or have they gone for the Congress guarantees? Now, how are the pollsters factoring in the women vote? A lot will depend on that. That is X factor number 1. X factor number 2, because I mentioned earlier on that last time when Madhya Pradesh polled, we were here till 11:30. One of the reasons why we were here till 11:30 p.m. was because of the tight fights. If you look at 2018 and look at the tight fights, there were 30 seats. That is more than 10% of the total number of seats in the state. 30 seats where the winning margin was less than 3,000 votes. It was less than 1.5 to 2% of the votes. 15 of those 30 seats went to the Congress, the BJP had 14 and the others had 1. Interestingly, the BJP had a bigger vote share despite getting lesser number of seats in those tight fights than the Congress, and yet the Congress had just 1 nose ahead, 15 to 14. So those tight fights are going to be critical, and mind you, these tight fights are spread across various regions of Madhya Pradesh. Some of them are there in Gwalior Chambal, some of them in the Malwa belt, some of them in the central part of the state, some of them in Vindhyachal. So it's not like, those tight fights are concentrated in just one region. So those tight fights, how are they going? That's the second X factor. And the third X factor, and this is again going to be critical for the Congress party, the BJP bastions. Now these are seats that the BJP has never lost since 2003. Since they have been winning elections in the state of Madhya Pradesh for the last 20 years, the BJP has not lost these 58 seats. 48% vote share, almost 50%, which means 1 out of 2 votes is going to the BJP. The Congress's vote share in these 58 seats is 11% lower than the BJP. And again, it is not like these seats are concentrated in one region. It's there in Chambal, it's there in the central part of the state, it's there in Vindhyachal, a couple of seats in Mahakashal, but really it's spread right, some in Malwa as well. So it's really spread all across these states. Now the reason why these 58 seats are important is because if this trend continues, and remember these are seats that the BJP has not lost in the last 20 years, if this trend continues, then the starting point of the race for 230 for the Congress is 230 minus 58, let's say 60. So it's actually 170 seats. So Congress needs to win 116, which is the majority out of 170. That is an incredible strike rate. You have to get a strike rate of 66%. You have to win 2 out of every 3 seats you're contesting, unless, of course, it is such a big wave, it is such an undercurrent that in those 58-60 seats that the BJP has not lost in the last 20 years, the Congress is able to topple them in those 58 to 60 seats. So these are the three X factors. Let me go across to our psephologists who are joining us, and we have a full panel of psephologists. No politicians today. We don't want any of the political talking points. This is going to be clearly, I wouldn't want to call it an academic exercise, but clearly for people who are interested in exit polls, people who are interested in the science of how people predict elections, this is the show for you to watch. So, Professor Sanjay Kumar is joining us. He's from CSDS. He's a familiar face here on CNN News 18 here in our studios. Pradeep Bhandari is the founder of Jan Ki Baat. Manoj Kumar Singh is the founder of Matriz. He's the CEO of Matriz. Dr. Sandeep Shastri, psephologist, also joining us. Pradeep, I'll start with you first. Your numbers give the Congress a slight edge. It's slightly different from some of the other polls that I outlined, and some of them are giving a decisive edge to the BJP. What in your mind explains the difference? Because clearly, I can understand that pollsters get the margin, here on upar niche 10-15, wo to theek hai. But the direction, some polls getting the direction this way, some polls getting the direction that way. How does one explain that?
See, I'm a bit conservative on this, but let me tell you that there are 40 seats in Madhya Pradesh where the margin is very, very low. Now, in these 40 seats, if the Bharatiya Janata Party ends up winning 55% of them, then it will cross 115. If it ends up winning 65% of them, it will cross 120. And if it ends up winning 80% of them, it will even cross 125 and cross 130. Now, on the women vote factor, Zaka, last time 50%, more than 50 seats were there where the women vote was more than the men vote. Those seats have now reduced to 34. Overall, the women voting percentage is not higher than the men voting percentage. It is 2% less than the men voting percentage. So if you look at it in totality, it is not like Bihar where the women disproportionately polled more than the men. Here the quantity of men vote is still higher than the women vote. If the women vote has increased by a certain amount, it's the men vote also which has also increased. So it's not that only one vote is increasing. But overall, I do feel that the Bharatiya Janata Party, if it is able to win these close margin seats because of the women vote, it can definitely cross the majority mark, and if it wins it one way, it can even cross 130. But I do not see a 150 scenario on the ground for sure. And just one small point, in the 58 seats that you mentioned, this time the BJP is not winning all of the seats because at some places there are issues with respect to the candidate. So if more women are voting for the BJP, less number of youth are voting for the BJP in Madhya Pradesh than what it had in 2018. And also note, in 2018, it was not the Congress which had polled more women vote, it was still the BJP which was polling more women vote than the Congress. It is now that the BJP has a disproportionate higher women vote. This is where it can definitely have an edge and also touch 130.
तो मनोज जी, मैं फिर वही एक पॉइंट पे आ रहा हूँ, क्योंकि देखिए एग्जिट पोलस्टर्स थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर नीचे यहाँ वहाँ हो सकता है, उसमें कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है, लेकिन 3 पोल इस तरफ और 3 पोल उस तरफ, तो उसमें तो कुछ गड़बड़ है ना।
आप इसको गड़बड़ भी मान सकते हैं। देखिए, जब भी हम लोग जाते हैं फील्ड में तो एक चीज़ देखते हैं कि पब्लिक किस चीज़ को पकड़ता है और पोल का नेचर क्या है। यदि आप मध्य प्रदेश में देखेंगे तो बीजेपी के लोगों को जितना विश्वास था कि बीजेपी हारेगी, उतना शायद कांग्रेस वाले को भी विश्वास नहीं था कि बीजेपी हारेगी। ये फैक्ट है कि पार्टी के अंदर जितना एंटी इनकम्बेंसी शिवराज सिंह चौहान के भीतर दिख रही थी, शायद पब्लिक के बीच में वो कम थी। दूसरी बात है कि ये पहली बार भारत के उन चीज़ों को देखिए कि जो लाडली बहना इन्होंने लेकर आया और उसके 4 महीने के अंदर 4 किस्तों को दिया और उसको इम्प्लीमेंट किया। उस योजना को लाकर एक तरह से देखा जाए तो भारतीय वोटर को पैसा दिया गया, वाइट के रूप में दिया गया, अकाउंट में दिया गया कि तुम मुझे वोट दो।
और ये बताइए, अगर ये चुनाव 6 महीने पहले होता तो फिर अलग स्थिति बन जाती?
पूरी तरह से अलग स्थिति। ये पिछले 1 महीने के अंदर जिस तरीके से चुनाव के समीकरण बदले हैं, मध्य प्रदेश के चुनाव पिछली बार 3 लोगों ने लड़ा था, शिवराज सिंह, कमलनाथ जी, दिग्विजय सिंह और ज्योतिराज सिंधिया। 3 लोगों ने मिलकर कांग्रेस को वहां लेकर आए थे। कमलनाथ जी मैनेजमेंट को संभाला था, दिग्विजय सिंह पार्टी को संभाला था और ज्योतिराज सिंधिया जी ने सारे पब्लिक जो उनके वोटर और ये थे उनको यूथ को इकट्ठा किया था। लेकिन इस बार सिर्फ कमलनाथ अकेले थे और पूरे चुनाव लड़ रहे थे, और दिग्विजय सिंह सिर्फ अपने सीटों पे, जिन सीटों पे अपने लोगों को उतारे थे वहां तक उन्होंने केंद्रित कर दिया था। लेकिन एक महीने की पहले की स्थिति देखेंगे तो कांग्रेस में वैसी नहीं थी, दोनों बहुत काफी तालमेल बना के चल रहे थे। एक सिचुएशन जो कहा जाता है पार्टी के कांग्रेस के अंदर ये फैला कि दिग्विजय सिंह इसलिए नहीं इंटरेस्ट ले रहे हैं क्योंकि कमलनाथ जी यदि मुख्यमंत्री बनेंगे तो अपने बेटे को सेट कर सकते हैं, तो ये एक बड़ा नुकसान हो जाएगा। और अभी कमलनाथ जी हार जाते हैं तो क्या होगा कि नेक्स्ट उनके लिए सीएम का कोई पद नहीं है। तो एक यहां पे वो दिखा, बीजेपी में जो 6 महीने पहले जो विरोध दिख रहा था पार्टी के अंदर पे, 7 यहां से बड़े लीडरों को ले जाकर ये पूरी तरह से उनके सीएम के अगेंस्ट में जो ये था रोका गया था। एक बात ये भी आती है कि भाई क्या कारण हो गया बीजेपी के अंदर कि शिवराज सिंह चौहान ये बोल रहे हैं कि बहना मैं चुनाव लड़ूं या ना लड़ूं। एक एंटी इनकम्बेंसी को पहचानने का एक तरीका भी होता है लीडर को कि हमारे विरुद्ध कौन से वोटर हैं जो अगेंस्ट करते हैं। मैं तो ये समझता हूं कि शायद ये शिवराज सिंह चौहान अपने वोटर जिनके लिए उन्होंने पॉलिसी लेकर आया उनको पकड़ना चाहते थे, उनको कैच करना चाहते थे, इमोशनल, और उसमें वो सफल हुए।
तो ये दो चीजें हैं, and I want to ask Sanjay Kumar this. You know, one thing is, like I said, 6 months ago, had this election happened in Madhya Pradesh, maybe the result would have been different because everyone you spoke to said, you know, 18 saal ho gaye hain, there is a fatigue factor, naya chehra chahiye, and so on and so forth. So, you know, there was a fatigue factor with Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Two things changed in the last 6 months, and I'm curious to know from you whether voters decide on record in the last 6 months or whether they decide on the record of the last 5 years, because clearly the BJP made a lot of amends in the last 6 months. Shivraj himself, you know, really got a real wind in his sails with this whole Ladli Behna business and the LPG cylinder prices being reduced after the Karnataka elections, all of that. And then the central leadership, as Manoj ji said, flying in 7 MPs and 3 union ministers to, you know, contest the elections. Will that make a difference, the last 6 months and the catching up that the BJP did? Or do voters, you know, look at the last 5 years of a government and decide whether to vote it back or vote it out?
Zaka, I think there is a unanimity among a lot of pollster analysts that if elections were held, say, 6 months or a year ago, BJP would not have performed as good as they are likely to perform in the elections which has, you know, happened just now. And the reason is that for the last 6-8 months, BJP, especially Shivraj Singh Chauhan, has, you know, doled out various schemes, and Ladli Behna scheme is the scheme which is much talked about. So the big point, I don't think that BJP, the voters make a very carefully crafted decision about which party to vote for, looking at what party or what government has been able to do during the last 5 years. But whatever government has been able to do during last 6-8 months, even sometimes within the last couple of months, that creates a perception in the mind of the voter, which becomes more stable and more durable compared to whatever party has been able to do or the government has been able to do during last 5 years. I think that has brought BJP back into a contest, serious contest, as some of the polls are also indicating that BJP may be winning assembly election in Madhya Pradesh.
Yeah.
If you look at, if I go by the data, we have figured out that, you know, roughly 13, between 12 to 14% voters make up their mind on the last day, very last day of voting, and similar number of the voters make up their mind couple of days before voting. Who are these voters? These are not the voters who are looking at, you know, 5 years of the government by any political party. They are making up their mind going by the perception, and the last 6 months, or I would say last 2 months, created a perception that BJP is in a serious contest. Shivraj Singh Chauhan is doing a good work with regard to various schemes. So this perception may have helped BJP in garnering more votes than they would have expected to get.
Okay. So let me go to the second big state, the heartland state, which is Rajasthan, right? Let's see what are the factors there. There, I think it's a little more clear because remember in Madhya Pradesh, I said 3 polls are suggesting BJP will win, 3 polls are suggesting that Congress has the edge. But in Rajasthan, I think it's a little more clearer because a good number of the polls, look at that, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 polls. I think 5 of those polls, other than the one at the top, and from what I understand, the one here. So 5 out of the 7 are giving an edge to the BJP. two are giving an edge to the Congress party. So it's a little more clearer as compared to, let's say, Madhya Pradesh, where it was almost 3:3. So today's Chanakya is giving Congress 101, Axis is giving Congress the range of 86 to 106. Those are the only two polls who are giving the Congress the edge. PMark is saying 105 to 125 to BJP, ETG is giving 108 to 128, Matriz is giving 115 to 130, C Voter is giving again 94 to 114. So broadly, it seems like most of the pollsters are saying that yes, the BJP has the edge, and this is in keeping with a pattern that we've seen in Rajasthan for the last 30 years, where it's alternating every 5 years between BJP and Congress. Now, what are the factors at play if these exit poll results hold? Takeaway number one, the revolving door pattern that we have seen in the state of Rajasthan for the last 30 years will continue. We've seen this in other states as well. In some of those states, it's broken. In Kerala, for example, in Tamil Nadu, it's broken over the last few years. But in Rajasthan, that trend will continue. Takeaway number two, the BJP's campaign, whether it was corruption, safety of women, paper leak, crimes, the Udaipur issue resonated in the last few months. So all of that seems to have found resonance amongst the people. Takeaway number three, and this goes without saying, this whole rift between Gehlot and Pilot, which was in the headlines for the better part of the last 4.5 years, that has really impacted the Congress's chances, particularly in eastern Rajasthan, in the Mewat region, the Gujar-dominated region. Takeaway number four, the gains that the BJP may have in the Mewar region, that is giving the BJP hope for a comfortable margin, because remember, the Rajputs, the upper castes are a very big factor in Rajasthan. They always have been, and particularly so when the BJP wins, they tend to vote quite substantially for the BJP. And takeaway number five, the guarantees that the Congress party announced may be resonating with voters in other states. It may not necessarily be resonating in the state of Rajasthan. So, having said that, what are the X factors? Just like Madhya Pradesh, remember Rajasthan too has seen its fair share of tight fights. It has also seen its share of personality clashes between Gehlot and Pilot, of course. So let's go look at the Pilot factor, because I think there is a caste factor intertwined here as well. There's also a regional factor intertwined here. So Pilot factor, it's about 40 odd seats, largely in the eastern part of the state. This is the Mewat region, so you have Jaipur, you have Ajmer, Tonk, Dausa, that entire Bharatpur, that entire belt. And if you look at 2018, out of those 42 seats, the Congress won 27. The others actually were the number two, not the BJP. The others were number two, 11 others, independents and other smaller parties won. The BJP only had 4 seats in eastern Rajasthan at a vote share of 34%. The Congress had 27 at a vote share of almost 40.5%. So the Congress, in terms of seat share, won almost 7 times the number of seats of the BJP. This critical part of eastern Rajasthan, I think, is one X factor. Whether those Gujars and the dominant castes in the eastern part of Rajasthan shift back to the BJP, that is one critical X factor to watch out for. The other X factor, just like we mentioned, tight fights in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajasthan too. Remember, the Congress just reached 100 in 2018. They needed 6 BSP MLAs to then switch to the Congress for them to go past the halfway mark. The tight fights, 23 out of 200 last time around. That's again more than 10% of the seats. The BJP had the edge in those tight fights. The BJP had 42.8% of the vote share. The Congress had 41. Congress won only 9. The BJP won 13 out of these 23 tight fight seats. And finally, this is again, I think, going to be a critical factor. But ultimately, if the BJP wins, the central high command will decide who's going to be the chief minister. But let's not forget the Raje factor. She has been a multi-term chief minister of the BJP, the biggest face of the BJP in the state of Rajasthan. Again, 42 seats. And in an election where the BJP got wiped out last time around, almost 20 of those seats out of the 60 that the BJP won, 1/3 of those seats were in what is called the Rajput-dominated seats. The southern part of Rajasthan, this is south of Udaipur, and then of course there is a lot of these seats in what's called the Marwar region. So clearly, Vasundhara Raje is a factor. The Rajput vote is a factor. Whether or not, and the difference between Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, let's say the BJP wins Madhya Pradesh and the BJP wins Rajasthan, the ease for the High Command in Rajasthan will be the fact that Vasundhara is not a sitting chief minister. Shivraj Singh Chauhan is a sitting chief minister. It's much harder to dislodge or remove a sitting chief minister. No matter how powerful the High Command may be, Vasundhara is not a sitting chief minister, so the things might be a little different there. So let me bring in our guest, Professor Sandeep Shastri, who's also been waiting very patiently. So let me come to you, Professor Shastri, with the Rajasthan question. Like I said, 7 polls, 5 of them giving the edge to the BJP, 2 to the Congress, and even in the 2 that are giving the edge to the Congress, it's just a slight edge. Neither of them is saying that they will go comfortably past the halfway mark. So again, I'm going by the directional trend, not so much the degree or the magnitude. The directional trend seems to be the Rajasthan's revolving door politics over the last 30 years will continue in the 2023 election as well. Do you think that that will be the case, or will there be, is there anything that you have seen or heard on the ground to buck that trend?
Zaka, if you look at Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, I think both these states are seeing a very close contest, especially if you look at the likely vote share of the main contestants. And that's why the various exit polls seem to be taking different positions, because as they translate the vote share into seats, you have these differences emerging. So I think Rajasthan is going to have a very, very close race. And I would quickly highlight from what you have said, the 5 R's, as you put it. You see, I think revolving door policy bites or defeat. It is one factor that comes in. But besides the first R of the revolving door policy, I think what is equally important is the rift within both the Congress and the BJP. And I think the party which managed the rift more effectively is the one which would have the upper hand. And it seems to be the BJP which has been able to do this. The third R which you talked about is the range of schemes that the government came up with and which it sought support from the voters on. Now, my take would be a little different from what you said. I think if anything worked for the Congress, it was this factor, the range of schemes that it had, its chief minister face, and this factor worked, I think, in their favor. The fourth R you talked about, the regions. Yes, there are, the fight is always in the regions, and the BJP appears to have done well in a particular region, which could put them at an advantage. And of course, as you finally said, the Rajay factor now within the BJP. So for me, these 5 R's taken together is the basket of factors which will define and decide the result. If you had not been on Madhya Pradesh, I would have said similarly there were 4 M's. The Mahila, the Mamaji, the Mantri and the Modi factor. By Mantri, I mean bringing in central ministers and therefore helping develop a social coalition, because these ministers represented different social groups. So here it is 4 factors which have brought the party a little ahead of the Congress.
So Pradeep, what are you, I mean, you've given a very decisive mandate to the BJP in Rajasthan. What are you seeing working for the BJP in Rajasthan which you haven't seen in Madhya Pradesh?
See, again, Zaka, I'll say that Madhya Pradesh also, if BJP polls the maximum close margin seats, it can definitely cross and reach till 130, 135. I'm being a bit conservative on Madhya Pradesh. On Rajasthan, Zaka, it's very, very simple. Last time the Congress party had literally swept eastern Rajasthan. If everything else, like we've done a seat-wise analysis, so even a seat-wise total does not get the BJP to less than 100. But even if I translate the vote share into seat share, taking the caste representation in mind, the eastern Rajasthan belt, this time the Congress party is not sweeping. So that is where the Bharatiya Janata Party makes a significant dent, and the Kota region, the Sambhag, where you're talking about the Vasundhara Raje factor, that is where the BJP is sweeping. So if I look at the other caste, it's the Gujjar vote which had went 90% with the Congress party last time, thinking that a Gujjar would be made the chief minister, and this time it's more an anti-Congress vote by that community. The SC, ST Muslim last time also had voted the Congress decisively in an anti-BJP mandate. That remains constant right now. All the other castes, whether it is the Meenas and others, are polling the BJP more. So even in the worst case scenario, if I take the 27 close margin seats, the BJP does not fall less than 100 and it can go at least till 120, 122.